if social media can impact the way that my brain thinks, and I think I'm a fairly smart guy. I'm not the brightest bulb on the tree. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, and other puns and analogies and turns of phrase. But I'm not the dumbest either. I'm a fairly smart guy. I recognize how my brain is changing. I'll give you a great example. Sunday night, football game, big one, Super Bowl, right? And at a couple of points, I invite good friend and colleague Belle Kay over to be a part of said Super Bowl. The wife makes a big spread, way too much food. I'm still eating on it as we speak, but that's great. And there's Belle, and there's Matt, and there's the wife, and all three of us are on our phones. We're all sitting on the sofa, and we're all on our phones. And none of us felt like there was anything wrong with that. What do you do when you're standing in line? I don't get bored in lines anymore. I don't get bored at the DMV waiting on my driver's license anymore. Used to be you grab a paperback book, maybe read a book. You know what you also used to do? Strike up a conversation with your neighbor next to us. You don't do that anymore either, do you? You're on your phone. At least I'm on my phone. I don't necessarily want to be on my phone. You know how I justify it? You know how I feel better about myself? I'm just being as honest as I can with you. You know how I feel like I'm better than the other. Everybody else that's on their phone, these are poor, pathetic. Look at these people over there on their phone. Can't get their heads out of their phones. Oh, but me, I'm doing show research. That's the way I justify it. And, and even sitting here today, I want to believe that it's partially true. That solitaire games show research, too. The point is, it is altering our brains to the point that it's time we do something about it. But we can't. Circle back to my admission. We're all addicted. You're addicted. I'm addicted. We're all addicted. If not to social media specifically, to the internet more broadly. And if I had my way, I'm just telling you, folks, the way that it is, I'm not saying that this is the way that it should be. I'm telling you, if I were king of the world, I would eliminate social media platforms. Even the Facebook, Twitter, all of those. Now, I'm not saying that's the way that it should be. I'm telling you that this is not a net positive. And hasn't been for a long time. And it's affecting our kids more than anything. And what are we going to do about it? We need age restrictions on certain social media platforms. I agree with Josh Hawley. Now, I understand that's controversial. I understand many of my libertarian friends are freaking out. You call yourself a libertarian? I do. But that doesn't mean that we don't have parameters. That doesn't mean that we don't have certain levels of an age of majority by which you can do certain things, and under that age you cannot do certain things. It is 12:33. We'll continue the discussion next. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Friends, yesterday I'm talking with Mark at the Safe House. He tells me business is great. He understands that life under the Biden administration is not exactly good, right? But he also understands that sometimes that correlates to better business for him. And I get that too. People are nervous. People want to make sure that they're protected in their homes, that their valuables are protected. We're hearing about more and more robberies in inner cities, more and more break-ins in people's homes, and I hate it, and I don't want any of it to be so. But I want you to be able to protect yourself as inexpensively as possible, but with the right equipment and with the right level of advice. And there's only one safe specialty shop in this town and in this state, and that is Nashville Safe House. The Safe House. Mark and his team want to help you find the safe that's right for you, to protect your valuables, to protect the things that you need in case of a fire. It's not just about break-ins. It's not just about negative. It's about something like a fire that can be unavoidable at times. Why not go see Mark on 4th Avenue South and let him show you the biggest selection of safes that you'll ever see on the face of the earth. They have Browning, of course. They have Fort Knox. They have Liberty Safe now, their brand new Liberty Safe dealer. Mark wants to help you find the safe and the price point that's right for you, and he can do so at the Safe House. So I encourage you to go by as soon as possible. You can go online at NashvilleSafeHouse.com or go by 4th Avenue South and tell Mark that Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only. It's the Safe House. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 12:38. Online always. Applications abound. You can go to the 99.7 WTN website and find out more about the show and what we do there. You can also find out more about Super Talk TV. WTN TV is on Facebook Live, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and you're invited to be a part of that. Thank you so much. Also, if you're a business owner, I'm looking down at my little screen here, and it says latest news, and it says you're live with Matt Murphy, and you are. And there it says you could have your logo here. Look at this. This is going to this might break the internet. This might be perfect. See, look. See, I'm looking. I can see it right here. And if you're watching on YouTube TV or Facebook or Twitter or Twitch, see, you can see it now too. So it's like one of those, what are those things called? Where you have infinite images beyond the images, beyond the images, beyond the images. Like if you have a mirror and a photo, but there's two mirrors facing one another, and then you have that and that and that and that. So there you go. So that's what's up and running. But you could have your logo there, and as a business person, you would have your name regularly mentioned, and there's a number there that you can call for more information. So you're invited. That's how we make this free to the masses on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Okay, so here's my premise. Josh Hawley has introduced it, and I think it's time to do something. You know, we hear a lot from politicians about protecting children. But they don't seem to be doing anything about protecting children from fentanyl, which is pouring across the southern border. And I understand that's political. I get that. The Democrats don't want to do anything about that because it amounts to votes. Many Republicans don't want to do anything about it either because it amounts to labor. But when it comes to this, is it just too hard to do something? What, your kid's going to whine at you? Tell me, parents, what benefit is there for your 14 or 15-year-old to be on TikTok or Instagram, or is Snapchat still a thing? I don't even know. I feel like an old man when I talk about this. But you heard the statistics that I laid out for you in the beginning of the show. This is negatively affecting young people on a level that's going up astronomically with no end in sight. Josh Hawley, an individual, I said last night on social media, and by the way, and I jumped in the truck today to head to the radio station, and I heard Del Giorno say this, and he's right, that it is not lost on me, the irony that I'm constantly on social media and we communicate via social media, and here I am moaning and you-know-whatting and complaining about social media. But I mentioned that I have an appreciation for Josh Hawley and the work that he has done in Missouri. And some of you scoffed, and look, whatever, to each their own. I'm just saying that the guy has been a pleasant surprise to me. Republican Missouri Senator Josh Hawley has introduced legislation that would bar social media companies from offering accounts to children under the age of 16. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? The only answer that I've heard is that it's big government interfering in the lives of what ought to be a parental decision. Well, here's the way I would answer that. We don't let parents beat their children bloody because they believe that's the best way to discipline their children. There's a line that parents aren't allowed to cross. And sometimes it's gray. I get that. But we don't allow parents to discipline their children in ways that amount to what society has determined would be abuse. And something must be done about it. Something as simple as this. On social media platforms, just require that you verify your identification. You verify your identity. That's it. And anyone under the age of 16 need not apply. '90 says about 20 years ago, Facebook had an age limit. I do recall something vaguely along those lines. I can't really remember. I don't use Facebook enough to know. How could they enforce it? How do you prove your identity? I do it all the time online. Have you never engaged online where you have to take a photograph of your identification and send it to them? And normally it's a little there's a little box there and it shows you exactly where to put the ID. These things happen all the time online. We have the technology to do this. I remember, and I forget what it was that I was applying for, where I had to take a photo of my identification, front and back, my driver's license, and then I had to take a photo of myself and send it with my driver's license. So I'm verifying that I have this driver's license and I'm of legal age and this is who I say I am. And oh, by the way, here I am. I mean, there are ways to do this. How do you enforce it? You enforce it the same way that you enforce underage drinking laws, the way you enforce not allowing kids into strip clubs, the way you enforce anything else. Obviously, there are tremendous loopholes, and some parents will work around it, and some parents won't care. We get all of that, but this will give a tool in the arsenal of parents who want to do something about it, because I understand the pressures that certain parents are under. As their kids tell them, well, everybody else is doing it, and why are you being so lame, and yada, yada, yada. I get that. Well, this gives those parents an arrow in their quiver by which they say, no, you cannot be on Facebook or Twitter or Twitch or YouTube or TikTok or whatever. You're not old enough. You don't get to drive a car when you're 14. You don't get to operate this computer when you're 14 either. Social media platforms are not a God-given right. More often than not, they are private companies. It is not a public utility. All right, I've said my piece. What say you? 1246, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Sean is first up in this first hour on this Wednesday edition. Hey, Sean, glad you called. Hey, Sean, glad you called.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Sean. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Yep, no, thanks, Matt. Hey, listen, I originally called because I was going to comment on, eliminating the internet and social media and all that stuff because, you think back to the time of, Desert Storm and, launching the Patriot missiles, and we're all watching it, and, we're watching CNN cover them as they're landing and everything. The need for information, it's there. I think it's important at times, but I think, you look at this past week up in East Lansing, with the information that was coming out as fast and furious and unfortunately as wrong as it was about, multiple shooters and what have you. I mean, I just drove up to East Lansing yesterday to pick my son up, who's a freshman there. And, I agree with you to a degree. There has to be some kind of tempering point with the need for information and the availability of the information, if that makes sense.
Well, and already I'm getting slapped back from my comment that there are ways to identify yourself online on social media platforms that involve your identification. And I was doing it for a security. I recall I was doing it for some sort of security background. I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, no, I remember what it was. It was an application to rent the house that I'm in Mount Juliet. They wanted my photo. But already I'm getting clapped back about, you think I would give my identification to Facebook? All right, first off, if you think Facebook doesn't already know who you are and where you live and what you're all about, you're fooling yourself. Two, because they do. They know everything about you. Two, if you are engaging on a social media platform that you're not comfortable sharing your identification with, then you shouldn't be on that platform to begin with.
Right. I've been in law enforcement for 30 years, and, what you're kind of referring to, we call those status offenses. They're illegal just because of the age, like drinking underage or possession of tobacco, stuff like that.
Right.
They're status offenses until you reach the age of majority. But it's one of those things. Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He wrote a book called On Killing. And everybody went through the roof thinking, here's this, retired Army colonel and promoting killing and what have you. But he broke it down and showed, and I've heard him speak when I lived up in Chicago, he broke it down to where the overstimulation of, the arcade games that have been developed and everything has adverse effects to underage children's development, to their mental development. And, they've showed MRI scans showing how it gets overstimulated and they can't differentiate between the feeling of, that it's a game or the reality. And you would like to think that the reality would be pretty obvious, but, they don't realize the consequences from these things. And that's where we end up having these issues where these underage kids go on these unfortunate rampages, and this week's wasn't an underage kid, but in the history.
No, I know what you're talking about. I clapped back on this for a long time, Sean. I'll tell you a quick story. because I believe in civil liberties. I believe that people ought to be able to do what they want to do in the safety of their own homes. And some years ago, this is probably now maybe 15 years ago, I still, for whatever reason, had an Xbox. And a buddy of mine gave me what was the driving game that was so popular? Oh, I can't believe that I'm losing it. Bell, what was the driving game that was so popular it was a video game
where you were carjacking people.
Grand Theft Auto. There it is. Grand Theft Auto.
There you go.
So I can't. I'm losing my mind. So I played. I popped in the game. This is when they still, actually came in disc form, and I popped in the game and I played it for a little while, and I recognized how more aggressively I was driving in real life after a month of playing that video game. And obviously, I wasn't slamming into other cars and committing offenses, but the point is that our brains can be affected by that which we absorb, and our brains probably recognize its nature less than we give our brains credit for. And what I mean by that is that what it's seeing on its screen, it's processing more reality than we probably believe.
Oh, agreed. I mean, I've said for years, being in law enforcement, that the mind and the brain is a powerful computer, but it is a powerful computer that will screw with you on a daily basis if you allow it to.
Well, and it's only dealing with that. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Sean. Your brain is a computer, but it's dealing with inputs. And whatever outcomes you get have to do with the inputs that your brain and your body and your psyche have received, not just over the last year or 10 minutes, but in your entirety of your lifetime. I've looked up this book, and I'm going to Dave Grossman. I've got it pulled up on my screen, and I'm going to look into this, Sean. Thank you for the suggestion.
Absolutely, it's a great read, and I'll send you a message on Facebook with another one that he's got. I'm not going to tie up the show, so thank you.
Please do, man. I appreciate that, Sean. Thank you so much. It's 52 after the hour. We'll get to more calls momentarily as we continue. Also coming up in the 1 o'clock hour, Lauren Southern, who has an incredible story of big corporate wokeness that you won't believe. We'll tell you that story coming up at 1:05. It's the Murphy Show on Super Talk. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN, out of time this hour. Next hour, Lauren Southern with an incredible story of woke corporate media. That is on the way in just a couple of minutes, plus more of your telephone calls. And we'll get to the meat of the Josh Hawley suggestion that we limit the ability of children to be on social media platforms. We'll talk about that next. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Franzen. In New York, a life sentence without parole for Peyton Gendron in the Buffalo supermarket shootings. He pleaded guilty in November for killing 10 black people in charges that included domestic terrorism, which carried an automatic life sentence. After victim impact statements, Gendron spoke and apologized. Erie County District Attorney John Flynn says he's not convinced that the white supremacist is remorseful, saying he's still facing a federal hate crimes trial.
I anticipate that the reason why he said what he said today was to save his life in federal court.
Peyton's attorney signaled that they don't plan to appeal. The Federal Aviation Administration at the center of a hearing today looking at what led to the ground stop last month, the first since September 11th attacks.
Lawmakers grilled Federal Aviation Administration Acting Administrator Billy Nolan following the agency database outage last month that caused a nationwide ground stop, the first since the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Senator Ted Cruz.
This ground stop was the result of the federal agency's inability to modernize.
Nolan also acknowledged several recent close calls on airport runways, though defended the agency.
We are experiencing the safest period in aviation history.
Saying he has since implemented new procedures to avoid a repeat of events. M. Wynn, ABC News, Washington.
NATO allies working on strategies to help Ukraine defend against Russian attacks.
In NATO countries, a problem. Ammunition reserves are running down due to the handover to Kyiv. That means individual alliance nations will now have to pay for more to replenish those losses. Defense Secretary Austin.
We also discussed our progress in building up ammunition stockpiles and boosting defense industrial capacity.
ABC's Tom Rivers. A victory parade for the Kansas City Chiefs today. The team and fans celebrating the Super Bowl win against the Eagles Sunday, their second championship in 4 years. You're listening to ABC News.
Here we go. Hour number 2. The Matt Murphy Show continues. 105 Super Talk 99.7 WTN all across the great state of Tennessee. Anywhere. If you're listening on the app or on our social media platforms, we appreciate that. You can also watch the show via Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. It's my understanding, have you heard this, that we've already been banned in Argentina? Which is nice. That's like a little feather in the cap. We've only been doing this for about 2 weeks on the TV side of things, and already we're getting banned on various forms of social media. That's great. Does Russia have a yeah, we can probably get banned over there. Sure. I'll make it I'll give a pointed effort in the last hour to try to get banned in Russia, just for you, Belle. All right, so we're back on. Just hit the button there, by the way. Speaking of back, is my thing hung up or are you hung up? I just want to make sure everybody sees what they want to see before I introduce our next guest. I had the opportunity to see our next guest. Well, we actually scheduled this prior to her appearance on Tucker Carlson. If you don't know Lauren Southern, she is a Canadian journalist, author, documentary filmmaker. She's made such films as Farmlands, Borderless, and her most recent is Crossfire. And she found herself in somewhat of the crossfire, along with the rest of her family, with corporate woke media deciding that they're going to attempt to cancel certain people that might have different opinions of their own. And she joins us on the Matt Murphy Show to talk about her experience and her career. Lauren, thank you so much for being on with us. Good afternoon.
Matt, thank you for having me. I see you're trying to get banned from as many places as I am.
I've got a long way to go. Lauren, I've a long way to go to catch up with you, right? I mean...
Yeah, but I respect the effort.
Well, yeah, I mean, right. I mean, here's the deal. It's one thing for you to get banned on your own merits, and for no good reason, I might add, but on your own merits. It's another thing for this to fall to other members of your family, which is primarily the reason that I wanted to talk with you. But for those unfamiliar with your work, how long have you been doing this? And talk to us about some of the documentaries that you've made and some of the resistance that's come from Canada and beyond.
Yeah, for sure. So I reckon I've been doing this for nearly 10 years now. I started in the political sphere when I was 17 years old, believe it or not, and I'm 27 now. I've been a documentary filmmaker for a while. As you mentioned, Farmlands, my film in South Africa, Borderless, that was the illegal immigration crisis. That's what got me banned from Turkey, another country I can't go to.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute, Lauren. I think that's Turkey now. But did you hear the pronunciation that America was using on this the other day when they were talking about Turkey? They were saying Turkey, and it felt like a Canadian was saying Turkey.
Yeah, I've been banned from Turkey, eh? Yeah.
That's exactly right.
No, I didn't see that in the news. Yeah, well, I've been banned from Turkey, eh? And then I did Crossfire on the BLM riots, and I'm currently finishing a documentary called Infringed, which came out at the exact time that Biden is announcing he wants to ban assault rifles. So it's working out really well. It's all about the restriction of gun rights in America. We went all over, spoke to Cody Wilson, who makes ghost guns. We did night crawling in Baltimore, where they've got extremely strict gun laws, but guns all over the place, believe it or not. And it's been quite the adventure for some time.
Oh, I bet. Well, it's great to meet you via the phone. It's great to get to know your work, and I encourage people to look you up and get to know further about Lauren Southern, because she's going to be around for a long time. And it's so important that we have these independent journalists. You're needed now more than ever, and I'm of the belief, and I've long preached, Lauren, that corporate media and the manner in which they're controlled and the partisan positions that they take on so many of these issues will be the death of America, if not the free world, in as much as they've become de facto state media. I see it here in the States. I don't know if it's happening. I assume that it's happening in Canada as well. When you are speaking to groups, is this an area of focus, the fact that the media decides what their narrative wants to be, they want it to be, and then furthers that narrative as opposed to seeking what, it's my understanding, a journalist should be seeking? That's the basic truth.
Oh, absolutely. And you don't have to go even into some giant nefarious plot against the people, although I think that's happening too. It's just simply the thing that has tainted human honesty since the dawn of time, financial interest and power, right? And as soon as you corporatize truth, well, you're going to have people paying $1 to have certain things said and certain things not said. Every single massive corporation, especially the bigger they get, whether left or right, although I think the left are worse offenders at these times, they're going to have 40 different levels of bureaucracy they have to go through to ensure that they're not going to lose their advertisers before they can allow someone to say something. Well, we can't be banned from this network. We can't be banned from this audience. It's really sad. And, I've worked in corporate media. I've worked with people from corporate media. Obviously, I've done Fox. You mentioned Tucker, although I think Tucker is a bit of an anomaly. I don't know how he gets away with the things he says, but it's all very controlled. And it's important to have citizen journalists and individuals that are just even part of smaller networks so that they have a bit more freedom and wiggle room to get the ever-constricted truth out there.
Well, it's a relatively recent phenomenon, and I know that you deal with it on a day-to-day basis. There was a time not so long ago that if I came to an impasse with another individual over any issue, they could simply decide that we're going to disagree on this matter. You go offer your opinion to as many people as you can gather around the proverbial public square. I'll do the same thing, and we'll let the arena of ideas shake out. Now, not so much. Now, if these corporate entities get a hold of you, as you well know, Lauren, they do not wish for you to go about your way and espouse your opinion elsewhere. They want to destroy you.
It's really tragic because I remember, 90s, early 2000s particularly. Yeah, people would hate George Bush or whatever, but you could love or hate George Bush and find yourself at the same house party having a great time. It didn't really matter. People still loved each other and realized this was ultimately a battle of individuals versus tyrants, not necessarily a battle of left versus right. I quite like my fellow citizen, no matter their political views. Usually what I don't like are tyrants. And we are entering an era of progressive tyrants. There's always that pendulum shift. You'll have it kind of on the right a bit, and then we're swinging way, way, way off bounds in leftward sphere to the point where I mentioned on Tucker Carlson's show, we are seeing the implementation of essentially a communist social credit system. Of course, there are certain laws in place in the Western world that don't allow us to impede civil liberties and certain freedoms, but that does not apply to the corporate class. That does not apply to big tech. And unfortunately, the majority of our lives, particularly since lockdown, are being lived in the online sphere, are being lived throughout the tech sphere. All of our business has to go through it, our communication. And if you are cut out from this sphere due to your political opinions, it might as well be a social credit system. It might as well be the implementation of, this communist segregation from society where you're no longer going to be able to have a business, have a bank account, have a say in the public sphere if you are found guilty of wrong things, even if you're not. And as you mentioned, in this case, even if you're just related to someone who is guilty of wrong things.
Find her at laurensouthern.net. That is her website, and you can find all of the books and all of the documentaries and all of the things. I'll give you an example before we get into the Airbnb conversation of what you're talking about. We now know here in the States that prior to the 2020 election cycle, that the FBI used a private company, publicly traded, but a private company, Twitter, to do its bidding. They used Twitter as a de facto censoring agent of public individuals who were bringing information, true information, to the public arena prior to that election process with regard to Hunter Biden's laptop. I believe that is going on more broadly than we could possibly conceptualize with these corporations that have suddenly become woke. I think that they are either directly or indirectly doing the bidding of agents of the government.
Absolutely. I've always felt the blind spot on the left of where their tyranny comes from is government. And the blind spot on the right tends to be corporations because we like capitalism. We want people to be able to do business with one another. We want them to be able to do it without being impeded by the state. But I think we have a bit of memoricide sometimes, and particularly in the Republican Party, where there might be more financial interests and lobbyists going on. We have a bit of a memoricide that there were companies like the Dutch East India Company who held slaves, who had indentured servants, who had militaries, who imposed governments. Corporations can be used for just as much evil as governments, so long as they have the will to do so, the will to be tyrants. And especially when you have this incestuous relationship between a state and a corporation. That's not even capitalism anymore. We're just looking at crony capitalism. And that's exactly what we are living under in America and Canada. So when you have all these progressives jump up and down and say, look at how capitalism has failed here, look at the inflation rates, look at what a disaster this is. Well, no, we are in a crony system where you have certain corporations that are being picked, chosen by the government, given tax exemptions, given little missions under the table to censor the free market, to censor certain websites that might be saying the wrong thing that could hurt their regime. We are not living in a capitalist system right now. That is the delusion. It is cronyism, plain and simple, where you try to succeed in this market, you might be shut down for 2 years because of lockdown policy, but the big guy, the Walmart won't be shut down.
Mm-hmm.
You try to start a podcast and the FBI might hold down the button and say, just suppress them on Twitter, suppress them on Facebook. We're not being allowed to compete in a fair arena right now.
Right. It's amazing when one side of the equation is simply asking for an equal playing field. You give us an equal playing field, and we believe that we will win in the arena of ideas. And that's proven time and time again, which I think is why they have to put their thumb on the scale to begin with, because they recognize without that thumb on the scale, they're going to lose in that arena. Talk to me about Airbnb. Have you been banned by Airbnb, Lauren?
Yeah, so in 2019, I was actually taking a break from politics. I got an email saying that due to my political affiliations, I'd been banned from the app, the website, and I wasn't going to be allowed to book hotels with them, which seems like a very bizarre system to put in place. You'd think maybe, as disgusting as I would find this, they could at the very least put a flag on my profile and say, ooh, individual who's partook in wrongthink, right? And then the host who they're supposed to connect me with could decide whether they wanted me to stay at their place or not, because that's what they are. They're supposed to connect me with someone who I want to give money to stay in their house, right? They're not for anything else. They're a connecting system, but they've cut off actually their clients from being able to do business and ruined potential revenue for them, which I think Airbnb hosts should be more upset about, and probably are. But yeah, so 2019, I got that letter saying I was permanently banned. They wouldn't let me appeal it. And did you want to get into what has happened just this last week?
Yes, that's exactly where I'm leading to. So, I mean, first you have to deal with this. Now tell us the latest developments in terms of you and your, by extension, your family.
Yeah. So I've got a wonderful family here in Canada. My parents, just a working class couple that don't partake in the political arena at all, right? I don't represent them in any way. They love me and support me, but they're not political people. And they got a letter from Airbnb last week saying their vacation they booked to go on a little 2-day romantic holiday in a cabin had been canceled due to their affiliation with an individual who has been banned from their website for dangerous political ideas. That affiliation would be a blood affiliation to their own daughter. You got to wonder here, how many degrees of affiliation are we going to ban people for? I wasn't even banned for my own ideas. I was banned for affiliation to someone, and now my parents are being banned for affiliation to me. So I don't know if you and everyone listening to this radio show,
I just realized something, Lauren. Based on this interview today, I'm never going to be able to book an Airbnb again.
Yeah, exactly. That's a dangerous affiliation there. But yeah, so my parents had their holiday canceled. I just, I was blown away by this.
Well, and I think I picked this up from your conversation with Tucker the other night. But there has been new developments in as much as Airbnb is kind of, they say that they reviewed whatever decision that they had made. Is that right?
They claim that, but I'm feeling they're telling some porky pies here, because my parents never actually appealed the decision. They waited for me to tweet it out and kind of get the story out there and see if Airbnb would respond publicly, since they found this pretty atrocious behavior and wanted them to kind of own up to what they had done. Now, I don't think Airbnb anticipated for them to be trending number one last week on Twitter with, the likes of Donald Trump Jr., Tucker Carlson, and everyone talking about their site and getting so much political pressure. So they never would have appealed and reviewed my parents' decision if there wasn't that much public pressure on them, which is a sad reality, since I believe they've done this before to people who never got any justice. But given the public pressure, it seems they had some sort of board meeting where they said, we got to find some way to cover this up, because truly there is no excuse. There is no explanation for banning someone's family members for the opinions of their daughter, right? So they claimed to Tucker Carlson's producer that they had made a mistake. Oopsie, we accidentally sent a curated email perfectly targeting the family of a political activist and stating they were banned for affiliation. That was a mistake, right? And then they sent my parents an email saying they had reviewed their appeal and given their account back, and it was all a big misunderstanding. The only problem being, of course, my parents never appealed the decision. So they fake reviewed the appeal, tried to make it look like an oopsie daisy so that no one would ask any more questions, when in truth, there is simply no way you can track down Lauren Southern's parents and directly ban them from the site accidentally. No one does that accidentally. I don't know if it was an individual woke employee gone rogue, or if they are genuinely increasing this policy of censorship to levels of which we've never seen before in the culture war since the rise of communism, right?
Well, where does all of in the couple of minutes that we have left, Lauren, where does all of this go, though? I mean, this case is astounding, and without, and I fully believe that without your name ID, your name recognition, your public prominence, that this decision would never have been reviewed nor "quote unquote" reversed. But because of public pressure, they felt the need to do so. How do we apply those same types of pressures to these companies more broadly in order to help them understand how they're harming themselves by applying these nonsensical rules and regulations on people who happen to believe a little bit differently than perhaps the workers of the company?
A very good example of a successful boycott. You can go and look at the Airbnb stock, and they've had a bad week since the ban, right? And we really need to realize we as the market actually have power to make these changes. As we were talking about earlier, people are motivated by money. That's just where it goes. You have Volkswagen with the swastika on their logo and with the pride flag today, whatever makes them money, whatever year it is, right? And they'll switch it right back if the politics changes, sadly. That's just how it works. But we can successfully boycott companies. We can successfully tell them that, no, you have miscalculated your market. We are not as woke as you think we are. The tragedy, though, is if we do have these younger people who have been in the very progressive school system grow up and start to become the market and take over more political positions, it could be the case that Airbnb wait another 5 years before they try this again. That I was just the canary in the coal mine. They couldn't get away with it this time. And 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if they can, this will be a policy that they implement and spread across the masses to keep people in line. We don't know. And there could be nefarious political reasons behind this, too. Just in 2022, an Obama staffer joined the Airbnb team. We don't know what is going on in these boardrooms. We don't know if this is an ideological war, or if it's a financial one. It doesn't seem financial because they're losing money. So what is going on here in the background? It's scary stuff. Is there more intelligence agencies pushing the scale, trying to, change people's opinions out of fear?
Well, they're bullying. I mean, that's what these organizations do. They act as bullies. And they bully individuals, and immediately when they get pushed back, whether it's organizations or individuals, what I've noticed is that these bullies demand that you acquiesce, change your thought patterns, change your feelings, or shut up. And when they get pushback, they turn into victims. Suddenly they're victims of the pushback, which is what they pretend in a way so that they can further be bullies on the next stage. I'm just happy that we can shine a little bit of light on this subject and draw attention to it. I hope that people go to your website, and I hope to continue the conversation next time. I'm sadly out of time, but I so appreciate you being on with us today, Lauren.
Oh, no worries at all. This is a pleasure. Thank you. And best of luck to you in your getting banned from various different places.
Well, we're doing our best. We're doing our best with you on, Lauren, apparently. Look, we appreciate you. We'll talk to you again. There's Lauren Southern. Go to laurensouthern.net for more information. Banned from an Airbnb, and family by extension banned from Airbnb. Incredible. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, the date's coming up, right? February the 22nd, a week from today. We'll be at the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce that evening for a night of dinner and discussion with Coach Scott, Dr. Underwood, and the rest of the crew at LT 360. They can answer any and all of your health-related questions from a medical perspective, from a diet perspective, from a health perspective more broadly. Dr. Underwood is there to answer some of those questions. But I'll tell you, Coach Scott Oatsfall, he is so good at what he does, and that is help people understand how to get into the right mental state, the right mental capacity to eliminate the pills from your life, to get a better, healthy lifestyle rolling, understanding that inputs affect outcomes, and to get you back on the better health path. And as a consequence of this, you lose weight. I mean, and I know most of you go to LG360. I know that's why I did, to lose the weight. Well, you can lose the weight. You can get a more healthier lifestyle rolling. And all it takes is dinner and discussion with yours truly and the doc, as well as Coach Scott. Join us next week at 6:30. Sign up at LT360.com. That's LT360.com. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thanks again to Lauren Southern, whom I'm proud of. Bell K. Bell hit me up and said, have you heard about this story? And I read the story, and I couldn't believe it, that Lauren's parents were banned from an Airbnb due to their association with her. I mean, right. And he sends me the story. I said, yeah, we have to get this person on. And a day later, she was on with Tucker Carlson. So I like the way you're thinking there, Bell. And it was good to have her on today. And perhaps we'll have more conversations in the future. If you're guilty of wrongthink, and just read 1984, man. If you're guilty of wrongthink, you have to be eliminated either by some manner in society. All right, so back to the original subject, and I'm going to ask our next guest, and he'll sit in with us for the rest of the show, and I encourage you to give us a call as well. I'm resetting this because I think it's one of the more important stories that's going on today, and that is what to do about youngsters and social media. I'm a small government, small L libertarian. I do not believe that government should act unless absolutely necessary, unless it affects the health, safety, and security of the American people. We are a nation of laws, but we should not pass laws willy-nilly for no good purpose or reason. And that best purpose and reason would be to protect you from activity, unbeknownst to you, that would violate your rights and your civil liberties. That said, social media as a platform has become a real and present danger to young people. And I believe that it has grown as such, somewhat unbeknownst to the parents. Now, I don't have kids, so I can't speak directly to this, but I know that you do. I also know someone else that does. His name is Cameron Smith, and he's going to join us next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I love a little early Cameron Smith. We expected Cameron at 2 o'clock, but he got in early. He got in front of the wind and rain and nasty weather that's coming our way. By the way, in case you've missed it, nasty weather coming our way. We're on top of that at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And if you need to know, you can find out right here. 1:35. Okay, so we're up and running on not just our big-time radio signal, but we're now up and running on Super Talk TV. And I'm looking at Cameron Smith. A little blurry, but you know what? We'll live with it. I insisted that they make your camera worse this time around because last time when you were on camera with me, you looked way too good. Hey, Cameron.
I'm devilishly handsome. Come on, man.
Look at you over there.
I like it a little blur. That helps.
I know.
You don't want a lot of granularity.
I'm gonna get a little cloth. We'll wipe it off with a cloth. We'll get Hillary Clinton in here. What, like with a cloth? What's up, man? How are you?
Well, I'm doing well. I have this task for thanks of hiring an accountant and a data engineer. And do you know how hard it is to find an accountant right now?
Mm-mm.
Apparently there is an accountant shortage.
Really?
And I'm like, look, we do the best accounting, all the best accounting and things. But
use the best words.
The best
accounting.
Best accounting. It's great. But we also have great snacks. So like I just need somebody to be like, I'm an accountant. I want to work with you. Let's do this.
By the way, brand new breaking news. Sorry to interrupt. The Department of Justice has officially, now this is the least breaking news in the history of Earth. They've officially decided not to charge Matt Gaetz with anything.
I am shocked.
We knew that was a load of malarkey like a year ago, but the Department of Justice has finally decided that they don't have anything on Matt Gaetz, which we already knew. Okay, back to the point. I don't give you the opportunity because I love this concept. Thanks. By the way, I've not used my thanks. I didn't use my thanks. Does it expire?
Eventually, but you should use it.
I know that I should use it because it's rude of me not to use it.
So
tell them what thanks is.
I work with thanks, but the big thing about thanks is it's the little things that matter in relationships and business, right? Like how you treat people matters. And when I first heard about this company, I was like, you got to be kidding me. You are about gratitude? Like you're a business. That
right.
doesn't sound very profitable. But they figured it out. And the idea is, you know where you used to do the corporate thing? It's like, oh, you want to be that? We'll send you a golf club or we'll send you some massive it's basically like pay to play for business. Like we'll send you goodies if you do a thing. Well, this is like, hey, thanks for the meeting, and I send you a cup of coffee. Or like you and I do something, and I'm like, hey, Matt, thanks. Here's lunch on me, right? And then it's about you, and we build the relationship, but obviously you haven't used it yet, but you use it on your terms, on your time, and it's awesome. And so that's who I need an accountant for.
Well, thanks for thanks. And if you need an accountant, call Cameron. Or if you are an accountant and you want to work for a good company, call Cameron.
Yeah, data engineer. If you like tables and stuff.
What does a data engineer do?
So I had to learn this. I did not know. It is basically data visualizations, reporting tables to kind of like let you know what you're doing, how your business is going, and the data is we're engineering the data in a way that's useful to gain actionable knowledge for the team. It's kind of cool.
Man, you just said a lot of words.
I did. I have all the best words.
So I am about to get into a discussion with the audience and with you. And I'm encouraging folks to call me, and a lot of people have texted on the super text line. I hesitate any suggestion that the government needs to involve itself in my day-to-day life activities. I'm noticeably standing against that on a regular basis.
Yep.
But recognizing some of the data that we have coming out of the CDC regarding our young people and how their minds are being affected by something. You know, you can blame over the last several years COVID. I would not necessarily, although I think that had impact, a great impact, because socialization is so important.
Yeah, you were locked down.
Right. But I think it's time that we as a society, as an America, talk about whether or not we should limit young people's ability to get online on social media platforms. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever. And I understand that the immediate clapback is that's a parent's job.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer would be, well, this is going to be an opportunity to give parents a tool that they can use to better do their job. What do you say?
So I actually agree with you. And when we were off air, I shared a little bit of a story that happened to us that I've got a bunch of boys. I presently have 5 boys in my house right now.
Holy moly.
We're just
wait, how'd you get an extra? You had 3.
Yeah.
And then you adopted 1.
Yeah.
And then what? You got
a friend who is a foster kid at Nolensville High School who is a wonderful young man, is staying with us for about 10 days while his dad is on a cruise.
Nice.
So, full house, man. But the point is,
I feel so. We need to send. You know what? You know the person we need to thank is your wife, bud.
She loves it. She's like, I get these. I know the rules. She's like, man, it'd be super weird if we had girls. But the dude, she's like, I got this. And what we've realized
at this stage, she's just like, I don't care how many. Just make sure that they all have the same body parts. That's all I'm telling you.
Right.
Because I can't deal with the other.
Yes, we're now trying to field entire sports teams ourselves. But with a house full of boys, they're going to find ways to sometimes maybe look at things that they shouldn't. Now, we've got a lot of that locked down. Like, we are very conscious about screen time and what we put in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my sons, and this happened years ago, found a browser on the Xbox, right? And I didn't even know it was there. And he looks up, what is porn, and then goes down the rabbit hole, right? Ultimately, we figured out what was going on, but it took a minute because I did not know it was there.
How old was your boy? You remember?
At that time, 11.
Okay, that's such a boy question.
Mm-hmm.
It's a serious matter that you have to deal with seriously. Yeah. But if you step back as a dad and you recognize he hears these terms,
mm-hmm.
and we pretend like we protect them, but we don't.
No.
Your kids, whatever F-bomb or S-bomb or whatever you think your kids never heard, they've heard it. Come on.
Yeah.
But I have to laugh a little bit because he's like, I've heard this, and now I have this avenue that Dad doesn't know about. He doesn't look up, he wants to know.
And
what
is
this?
Very open family, and we've told them, hey, you can come to us with anything. We'll talk to you. We're not going to embarrass you. And it's just so easy for them to
mm-hmm.
look at stuff on the internet. And so that's the reason I've long called for age verification for pornography. Why? Because we know it has a psychological and mental impact on developing brains. I'm not arguing with you about your ability as an adult to choose to engage that. But I think most of us would say, we don't really want ready access for pornography for children. And if you want to argue that point, please call in so I can absolutely destroy you on air. Because nobody's going to argue that.
And obviously, if someone jumps in their car and rolls down to Deja Vu or one of the strip clubs in Nashville,
mm-hmm.
someone is going to be there saying, hey, I need to see your ID.
Bingo.
And if I look at them and say, I'm of age, I promise, I'll check your box, they're not going to let me in. Right? I have to prove. And it has always amazed me that on the interweb side of things, that right now, as it exists, as I understand it, it's, hey, are you 18? You better be 18. Yeah, I'm 18. Okay, you can come in.
Well, and we'll see how this works because Louisiana, for example, just enacted a law about age verification on pornography that took effect in January, right? And so I don't know I've not been to Louisiana and tried to engage pornography, but that system is in play. Other folks have, it's not foreign, this can't be done. It's just something we need to do to protect kids. When it comes to social media, the hard thing is if I said, well, should the government have a law about cigarettes? Well, most folks would be like, yeah, we shouldn't let kids smoke cigarettes 13. That's
mm-hmm.
kind of weird, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the physical health impacts. Well, we know there's not a question here. We know the mental and psychological impacts of social media with kids. That's not up for debate at this point. We know it's hammering them.
That as their brains are developing,
right.
as they're maturing, as they're becoming adults, as they're going through these hormonal changes,
right.
we're introducing something that completely alters their brain.
Yes, literally changes brain chemistry. And the dopamine hits, and you can go, I like to nerd out on it, but you can check this out yourself. It's available. And the hard part is it's not physical in the sense of it's not like smoking with your lungs, like it's really bad. This is heavily developmental, psychological. And so if people treat it differently, I don't think it is. I really don't think it is. I choose not to have my kids have social media accounts in my home because I know the damage that it causes. But there's a lot of parents who don't. And
how old's your eldest?
17.
And I mean, how do they handle it?
Well, they're able
not necessarily the adopted son, because he's kind of being introduced into a new world, generally. But even your eldest biological son, I mean, how does he handle it? Because I'm sure other kids have at school social media accounts.
Other kids do, but what I've told them is I said, if you want to communicate with your friends, you want to FaceTime, you want to chat, you want to like exchange communication, I can play ball there, right? I prefer you to do it in person because that's even better.
Right.
But that we monitor. We have an open phone policy. So he hands me his phone. It's unlocked. He can see mine. Like mine are mostly boring work communications and like scandalous things I sent to his mom. So
I love you, honey.
It's a little awkward, but
happy Valentine's Day.
But we want that openness. But the social media accounts, like I've had, and it's invidious. It's everywhere. Like I said, no TikTok. Nope, we're not going to do that. Well, then I started seeing these YouTube shorts. It's TikTok. Like it's all these things are everywhere. And so it's very much a constant thing. But if it was
by the way, a lot of them are just are benign.
Yeah. And it's not even the content that worries me. With pornography, it's the content, right?
Sure.
The content on the TikTok and YouTube shorts and even some of the I don't even know what the Facebook version is called. I just know it's there. Is the dopamine hit, the hook, the fact that you're constantly on it?
Constant, the desire and the need for constant stimulus coming into your brain. And and look, these are major admissions for yours truly, right? Because I justify it. I was telling the story earlier on air, and I was telling you off air, Cameron. I justify it by saying, well, this is my job. I have to keep up with the news. I've got to know what's going on. And so I feel like mine is justified. I'm in the bar and I could quit drinking anytime I want to, but you're an alcoholic and you've got a problem, right? But I recognize it when we sit down to watch a movie. If I don't take my phone into the other room during slow, downtimes during the movie, I'm on my phone on Twitter. Like, while they're walking across the field or whatever, and there's a 20-second span of time where nobody's talking.
Right.
I'm like, what the hell am I? I don't even realize I'm doing it.
And most of us don't realize how rude we are in person to other people.
There's no doubt.
The conversation hits a lull. Let me check my Twitter. Like
right here.
We're talking. What's happening? And so you see it. I see it. I do the same thing. I'm like, well, as part of my work, I'm forced to social media.
Make sure that the breaking news isn't breaking.
But like, I have to put my phone on the charger and walk out of the room, and then I want to go back to it.
I do too.
I want to hang out with it more than almost anything, and that's creepy.
The worst thing in the world is going to the bathroom without your phone. It's the worst thing.
Like, what did people do?
They had magazine racks, Cameron.
You realize how gross that is?
I know it. We still have them. I told Eric, I said, get rid of all the magazines in the house. No more magazine subscriptions because I don't read them. You know why? Because I have a phone. Thank you very much.
And the Chinese can listen in while you're going to the bathroom.
Well, I mean, good for them. I mean, at least they don't smell it.
Yeah, well.
I said that.
For now.
It's coming. 149 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Some of the reaction to this conversation. Curious your thoughts. Matt, this would all be solved if parents would buy their kids dumb phones to only make calls and texts. That's all they need. Or no phones at all. Look, the world is changing, and some of this, there's a little bit, and I'm not telling you you're wrong, 2660. I don't disagree with that. I don't presume to know what – this is a little bit of an area where I don't tread. Because I'm sitting in a room with a guy with like 28 boys in his house.
Yep.
I don't presume to know what the world is like for you. You're right? I mean, because I don't have any kids. My kids are perfect. My kids have never tried to get on porn sites. My kids make straight A's. They're, the star quarterback on the football. You know what I mean? So I don't know what pressures parents have on them with regard to telephones and smartphones and social media platforms and all of that.
But it's so freeing. Like, all the boys in my house, we have a lot of Nerf guns. I mean, a lot. And they were all running around my house shooting Nerf. I mean, it looked like it was Melee Town. And it was great because once they're free from this and they're not connected to it, then they're human again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want. That's what I want to raise is human beings.
I'm not telling on Erica when I say this. If she's listening, don't think I'm telling on you, hon. But, we moved into a neighborhood in Mount Juliet, and the kids go out, and there's a basketball goal across the street. We live on a cul-de-sac, and we're one of the last houses on the cul-de-sac, which is nice because you don't have through traffic. Sure. And it gives the kids the ability. And every afternoon, and sometimes it's more than others, it annoys the dogs. And on one or two occasions, something has been said in the house about, and I'm like, hey, at least we can count our blessings. These are kids outside shooting hoops or throwing a football or doing some sort of daily activity outside. They're not sitting in front of a computer screen, and they're not on their phones. And that gives me hope for humanity.
Get off my lawn!
Exactly.
Yeah, I would much rather have to deal with trespassing issues than you've never seen the sun. Like that, our policy is you can't play video games in our house if it is sunny outside. So that's at night or when it's raining and when we give you time, and we very much monitor that. And I'm telling you, it's like we're peddling crack.
You're so lame, Dad.
Well, they know that if they say that, it's zero. And like you can complain about it and go to zero, or you can have a little
bit. You can
bit.
be cool with it and have a little.
But I see the power and effect because the truth is, like throwing the ball in the yard, like it was fun when there wasn't a exciting alternative. It's that need for that hit, that need for this is exciting all the time. Well, guess what? Throwing the ball in the yard is fun, but it's not exciting like all these different videos and things that are just like invading your brain. So you have to get off the drug.
I think I'm addicted to noise, like noise stimulus. I'll tell you what I mean in a moment, because our brains are changing as we speak due to the internet, due to the phones that are in our pockets. It's 1:52. What to do about it? I'll tell you the details of Josh Hawley's bill as well and get Cameron's thought on this. Plus your calls coming up, 615-737-9986 at Supertalk 99.7 WTN.
It is 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories right now. 70 degrees and a cloudy day in the mid-state, expecting some storms and some wind later on. The highest chance for severe weather so far this year. Weather and traffic coming up just a few minutes away. Starting with an important sentencing in the nation and an update on flying objects over the nation.
In New York, the man responsible for targeting and killing 10 black people and injuring others last May in a Buffalo supermarket was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Erie County Judge Susan Egan addressed Peyton Gendron directly before she announced the sentence, saying there would be no mercy or second chances for his hate crime and ignorant and evil ideologies.
You will never see the light of day as a free man ever again.
Gendron pleaded guilty to multiple counts of murder and a charge of domestic terrorism, which carried a mandatory life sentence. Russian attacks ramping up again in Ukraine with fierce battles underway in the east. NATO allies in second round of talks today discussing ways to boost Ukraine's defense weapons and readiness as the war nears the 1-year mark later this month.
That was Michelle Franzen. Right now in Tennessee, Channel 4 says that 3 students in Wilson County are in a hospital after a car crashed into their school bus this morning. The collision happened on Flatwoods Road. A Kia Soul hit the back of the bus. About 25 students were on board. No one was seriously injured, and the driver was also transported to a hospital after the crash. And in our nation's capital today, Tennessee U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn tells WTN's Nashville's Morning News what she will ask when President Biden's picks to run the IRS goes before a Senate committee.
How many employees of the IRS are back to full-time work? And you know what? They're only 60% back in the office. The rest of them are working remote. And I said, you got to be kidding me. This is why there's nobody to answer the phones. It is why people wait weeks to get answers from the IRS.
Prepared statements say Danny Werfel will tell senators that he is committed to focusing on tax enforcement on high-income Americans, anyone making more than $400,000 a year. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, friends, the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief has been there for you and your family for well over 3 decades now. Dr. Gill began the process years ago of bringing technologies to the local community that had not been here before. The easiest example is compression technology and decompression technology. You have compressions, meaning you live your life, your spine smooshes down on those discs. That hurts, the nerves get involved, and then you've got pain. Relentless pain that you can only alleviate through pills or through surgery. Well, Dr. Gill thought of a different way, and he knew of a different way, and he brings that decompression technology to Nashville well over 3 decades ago. They're still doing that right now as we speak. I want you to go to the Dr. Gill Center, and they make it as easy as possible. $23. That's all it will cost you for your initial appointment. You make that appointment, you go into the Dr. Gill Center, and you will see a doctor like Dr. Wendy, Dr. Dominic, or the rest of the crew. over 100 years experience. They'll walk you through the process. They'll give you the x-rays, and they'll give you that diagnosis. Here's the number to schedule that appointment, 615-882-4838, 882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. All right, here we are. Here we go. Final hour of the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Several of you holding on. We'll get to your phone calls coming up in just a moment, continuing a conversation really started in the first hour, and I think it's a rather important one. Josh Hawley, a senator from Missouri, has introduced legislation called the Mature Act. It would require, I bet Mature stands for something. By the way, Cameron Smith is with us, Tennessee, and AL.com. You can read him there. You can hear him here. And he's also got like 28 other things going on.
Yep.
You got thanks going on. You need an accountant for that.
Yes, and a data engineer. We're still trying to figure out what that is. But
I don't know what that is.
We need one.
I mean, if you are one, you probably know.
I'm sure there's somebody in Nashville that's like, man, I want to go to a
Dude,
place.
I'm your data engineer.
I'm your data engineer. I want to go to a place with great snacks. And I respect that.
And Thanks has great snacks.
The best.
Okay. I believe you. And you're so we're walking through I guarantee, I don't know this to be true, but I guarantee you the Mature Act, it's called the Mature Act. MATURE. The Mature stands for something.
I'm sure it does.
Oh, it's no doubt it stands for something. Anyway, it would require social media platforms to verify that users are 16 years of age by scanning government-issued IDs and prohibiting social media companies from opening accounts for children under the age of 16. The legislation would allow parents of children under 16 to sue social media platforms for damages if said platform allows their child to open an account. This is akin to age restrictions on tobacco use, age restrictions on alcohol consumption, even age restrictions on driving an automobile. We as a society have gotten to a place where we have to ask ourselves a question. Are 14-year-old kids mature enough? Are their brains developed enough to recognize the good and bad that goes with social media platforms and how to navigate said same? And the statistics right now indicate that that is not the case. And kids are becoming more and more depressed, more dependent on exterior drugs. And I understand a lot of people are saying, well, they think it's the pharmaceutical industry more so than social media. I don't deny that that's a part of it, but this is a good place to start for me. I'm a small government guy, and I know people, my libertarian friends, will laugh at me right now when I say this, but I'm on its merits, I don't have a problem with this.
If there wasn't any ability to demonstrate the harm, then I would very much be like, no, the government should stay out of this. The fact that the harm is clearly demonstrable and it's especially harmful for children, and we're sort of like, well, I guess, free markets. I'm like, look, I'm a free market capitalist from the word go, but that doesn't mean that I don't want protections for things that are bad for minors, because what people don't realize is that children and adults are not equal. And in our culture, that you have to actually say that. They're like, well, a kid and an adult, same. No. Biologically, developmentally, they're not. And so we protect those children, especially in situations where it's great if you have parents that engage and will protect you and do those things. Not every child has that. So we still need to protect those kids.
And I believe in a society that allows every man to go to hell in his own fashion.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is that, if you want to grab a bottle of Jack every night and drink it, Cameron and I might come over and say, hey, man, we love you. We want to help you. Please stop. Don't do that. But do I want a society that makes it against the law for you to do that? No. That said, kids are different, and left to their own devices, a child will eat cookies for dinner every night, and we know that that's not a good plan. That's not a good plan of action.
We talked about this last week with respect to the immutable surgeries and things like that for children, like sex change surgeries. The reason we have reservations about that is because it's a permanent change at a developmental phase. that they'll have to live with for the rest of their life. And so if we think, hey, maybe that's not a great idea, well, maybe this isn't a great idea either.
A lot of reaction on social media, and we'll get to that. I know I say that with a spot of irony.
We're not.
I mean, because I understand. I mean, we use social media in our daily lives, and rightly so, but recognize the dangers of doing so. And as grown-ups, we can adjust accordingly. Kids do not necessarily have the same.
And there's
ability.
also a big difference between this interactive stuff that we're doing. Like I'm chatting with folks on YouTube, and we're having a back and forth about what's going on. And that's communicative, right? This was the whole aspiration of social media. Well, it'll bring the world closer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? Most of y'all are not doing that. You're doom scrolling or yelling. That's basically what's happening, and that's bad for you.
All right, Larry's in Clarksville with a thought on all of this. 615-737-9986. Hey, Larry, how are you?
I'm doing well. First of all, when will Cameron actually turn like 24 years old? Secondly,
thank you.
Well, secondly, don't knock deja vu until you've been there a bunch of times when you're 15, had some of the best hurricanes in Nashville.
You're a better man for it, aren't you, Larry?
Well, I mean, that probably explains a whole lot, Matt. I mean, you know who I am, so.
I heard that, Larry, I heard that if you go at the right time of night, you can get donuts.
Wow.
Glazed.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know about donuts.
Maybe make
I know that.
Well,
I know that. Well, I know that some of my friends took pictures that my first wife found years later, and it caused me a whole lot of problems.
I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, you got to watch those pics. Hey, I've got a real quick question before we move on to anything else, Larry.
All right.
It is an earnest question. So,
yes,
do they sell drinks in Deja Vu?
They did then.
Okay. I'm confused because the Hustler Club can't sell alcohol, right?
Right. Well, that's
it's
what
a
I heard.
BYOB deal. Is that because they take off their bottoms at Hustler Club? Okay, all right. They're fully nude at Hustler, and they're okay. I got it now. I think.
All right. So.
They are? Okay.
All right. So, Deja Vu's policy at the time, and like I said, I'm 15, and I'm also doing other stuff that I really should not have been doing. But their policy was at the time.
You're already in the 15-year-old hurricane demographic, which is very small.
So their policy at the time was if you could drink 2 of their hurricanes and walk out, you didn't have to pay. I had 3. I don't remember whether I paid or not.
I think you're making all this up, Larry.
Living and dying with the choices I've made.
Larry,
Matt, do you want me to send you people, that can authenticate this? I mean, I think I've sent you some stuff before.
As a matter of fact, Larry, I do. I want you to send me some of the dancers back in the day from Deja Vu that can verify your existence on the main stage at the age of 15 with a couple of hurricanes in your hand.
That is real specific.
I think I want that more than most anything right now in my life.
Well, first of all, Cameron, and listen, on a very serious note, and I absolutely love and appreciate Cameron for fostering and adopting. We tried to foster and adopt after my wife lost our baby, and we were turned down. She was a darn attorney.
Well, sometimes that happens. It's a big process. There's a lot to go through. And I suspect if you told them about going to the club and at 15 with the hurricanes, that might not have helped.
Well, I was about to say
case.
Oh, thanks, Cameron. Thanks, I appreciate you.
No, we're kidding. We're just joking around with you, Larry.
I know. But listen, I love you guys, but I do wish Cameron would age a little bit to make some of us old people look better.
Who are you looking at, Larry? Are you looking on the thing?
Hey, No.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I watch every day.
Whatever.
I like that Matt looks like he's in prison.
No, Matt is still a kid.
Well, I feel like one.
Well, that tells you how old I am.
Larry, we love you, buddy. I got to run along. I appreciate you. And that, you know what? It's one of those subjects that Cameron and I will address again as the process moves forward in the General Assembly with regard to foster, DCS, making it easier to become a foster family. I mean, that's a very serious subject, and we'll get back into it because I know it's one near and dear to Cameron's heart, and one that the General Assembly says that they're trying to work on.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're trying. It's, man, way behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. No doubt. Real quick, a breaking news story. I'm a little bit surprised. You know what? If Mac Morey were maybe 10 years older, I think he'd probably already have broken in with this story. But there is an age gap there. I don't say this often, and I don't say it in any way to, I'm not wagging my finger at the guy, but Raquel Welch has passed away at the age of 82. A little bit before my time and your time, so I know before his time. But was it Raquel Welch in that Caveman movie with Ringo Starr? Was Ringo Starr in it? No, Ringo Starr was in Caveman. This was in 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years BC with Raquel Welch. Smoking hot. An absolute icon. And dead at the age of, an incredible life, dead at the age of 82. All right, more telephone calls. John is in the borough talking addiction on the show today with Cameron Smith. Hey, John, how are you?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. So, first of all, Cameron and Matt, thanks for bringing this up. This is somewhat near and dear to my heart because it's not just about the porn. It also then can lead down another alley of, think about it from someone just trying to start drugs or pot and then all of a sudden getting into meth and cocaine and fentanyl and all that kind of stuff. I look at the same kind of parallel line for both of those kinds of things.
It's addiction.
What's happening in our society.
It's just a different subject. It's addiction, all of it.
Yep. And it's just scary how that can lead to so many different things. And it could be a real problem it really affects more men than it does females. So
well, pornography addiction, certainly.
Exactly, yes. And it's just unfortunate that that's how society's gone. So I'm actually with you on that, Matt, that 14, 16, 18, I think the younger the better because then it would help our society even that much more.
Well, and look, at some point we have to get up in the morning and put our pants on by ourselves and put our boots on by ourselves and deal with our own issues. And I'm very much of the belief that if you've reached the age of maturity in society, that you have to deal with these things through organizations and through community groups from a charitable perspective. There are plenty of ways. Church groups, charities, community organizations, all of these are there for individuals to get help with regard to whatever their addiction might be. That's not the place for government, in my opinion. But I believe when it comes to young people, just like I believe if you're 23 years old, I might disagree personally with the concept of going down to Vanderbilt Medical Center and, lopping something off or not, I don't necessarily believe that's the avenue to go down based on my personal faith and just based on how I think that will affect you. But that's not for me to say. You do you. You're grown.
Right.
It's different when you're 14 because I don't believe that you have the ability to make a mature decision for yourself, just like I don't believe that 14-year-olds have the maturity to be able to handle what social media has become in 2023.
Yeah, and I think that's completely reasonable. And I get it, the standard of it's my job to parent my kids, right? Yes, I see I've aged on the camera.
We've got an actual shot. We had filtered Cameron for a while, but we now have an actual shot. If you want to join us on our WTN TV, you can see a picture of myself, and there's Cameron out playing with his boys in a field some days ago. He doesn't look quite as good today, but
I grew my hair out like Belle, so I think it looks good.
That's actually that should be the shot that we show of you.
This is Belle.
That could be a good solution to our issue over there. There you go. It's 219. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, back more in a moment. And I'm going to ask Cameron his thoughts on this East Palestine or Palestine situation. Nikki Haley is running for president. Perhaps he has some thoughts on this. I'm not going to be the guy that tells her it's a fool's errand because I don't know that she wants to be president of the United States. Maybe she does down the road. I think in the short term, maybe vice president of the United States. We'll get Cameron's thought on it. 220 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Efficient Heating and Cooling is your one-stop source for all things heating and air conditioning in Middle Tennessee. Let's talk about it for a moment, folks. I know Jeff Eddy. I've met Jeff Eddy. I've had lunch with Jeff Eddy. I've had breakfast with Jeff Eddy, and I know he's a trustworthy soul. You need someone you can trust when it comes to your heating and your air conditioning, because if they come out and they check out the unit that is not operating properly, I mean, if it goes kaput, it goes kaput. You get that. But what if it's not operating as good as it should, and someone tells you, well, it's time to replace that thing? Well, you don't know if they're telling the truth or not. Well, Jeff Eddy, I tell you what, he does tell you the truth. He's a man you can trust. He believes in customer satisfaction first, middle, and last, and he does not endeavor to be the biggest heating and air conditioning company. He simply wants to be the best 100% referral record, and he gets it. Jeff Eddy Efficient Heating and Cooling will never charge you over $125 for a maintenance call on your residence, and oftentimes it's much less than that. But never, no matter how many units you have, it'll never be over $125. Plus, they're a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric and Elite Pro partner with Rheem. That's important as well when it comes time to replace. Here's the number. Write this down. You'll need it at some point. You want to have it when you need it. 784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient Heating and Cooling.
taking a look at flying objects the last few days flying over the nation, and Tennessee lawmakers considering some harsher consequences for distracted driving. That and more. 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Mac Morey. Brent writes in, I just want some reaction. Let me get a round table of reaction. Brent writes in and says, Murphy looks stoned on the video feed. That's just my face. I mean, I'll quote Ringo Starr. That's just my face. I can't help it. I have resting, you-know-what face.
Resting Matt face.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot count the number of times. If I had $10 for the number of times that I'm walking down the hall and somebody asks me, are you okay? Are you all right?
Really?
You don't look good. Are you mad? Are you okay? And I'm like, I am now. And then, yes, I have somewhat lazy eyes, and those lazy eyes equate to kind of stoned eyes. So I get it. I promise you, I'm not stoned yet. Now, 3:05, I can't make any promises, but right now, I'm perfectly sober, my friends. Cameron Smith is with us. There's McMorey back in the newsroom. Belle Kay entertaining us in the control area. Raquel Welch is dead, and I don't feel so good myself. She was 82 years of age after a brief illness. She passed away in Los Angeles earlier today. Brent says much love. Much love to you, Brent. Ringo Starr was in Caveman. Mm-hmm. So that's 2 Ringo Starr references in the span of like 10 minutes. And I can't remember the last one that we had. Nikki Haley said, you know what, if Donald Trump's running for president, I'm not running for president. And now she's running for president. And Donald Trump did not react in really a negative way at all. As a matter of fact, he kind of reacted in a positive way. Good for her. Great. Do you believe, Cameron, as I do, I'll go ahead and get that out there, that Donald Trump was made aware that Nikki Haley was going to announce her run for president prior to her announcing her run for president?
Probably. It looks to me, and this is pretty typical when you're getting in a race, you let the other folks know. I mean, you're ostensibly of the same party, so let's try not to trash each other, but I'm getting in. And I think if I'm Trump, I'm like, look, come on. Because what do I know? The more people that get in this race, the better chance I've got. And this DeSantis guy, that's the one that concerns me. Everybody else, that just helps me.
It's actually a compliment to Trump that he recognizes, and the way that he reacted, let's say she didn't even bother to call or to let someone in his inner circle know. That's good instinct, because I think it might be in his nature to immediately lash out and start explaining to people why she's the worst and she's the most. I mean, that you do what Trump did in 2016. But this is smart. You want to encourage as many people as possible in the field, because you know you have created through your presidency, through your prior campaign, and through the aftermath of the 2020 election cycle, you've created the best, strongest hardline base that's out there right now. Correct. I think DeSantis is creating that base for himself, but it is much inferior to Trump's. So the more that you can spread around the folks